You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
We tried to reach out to Twitter through their press email, and their automatic response now is a poop emoji.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CyberWire's Hacking Humans podcast, where each week we look behind the social engineering scams, phishing schemes, and criminal exploits that are making headlines and taking a heavy toll on organizations around the world. I'm Dave Bittner, and joining me is Joe Kerrigan from the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute. Hello, Joe.
Hi, Dave.
We got some good stories to share this week, and later in the show, Mallory Sofaste, consumer investigator and anchor with WMAR, returns. This time, she's talking about how scammers are going after animal adoption organizations.
Scoundrels.
But first, a word from our sponsor, KnowBe4. Where would InfoSec professionals be without users making security mistakes? Working less than 60 hours per week, perhaps. Actually having a weekend every so often. We get it. User behavior can be a challenge. But users can also be an InfoSec professional's greatest asset once properly equipped. What do we mean by that? Well, stay with us, and in a few minutes, we'll hear from our sponsors at KnowBe4 on that very question. All right, Joe, it is good to be back. We were away for a week while I was recovering from a little dash of COVID.
A little dash, that's how we call it now. A little dash of COVID.
I don't want to, COVID is not fun. And
No.
While I would say I had a minor, not minor, what do you call it? Not a minor bout with it. It was not bad.
It was survivable, apparently.
Yes. So far, so good. But
And for
I
the 2
wouldn't
weeks
wish it on
before that,
anyone.
I was not feeling well.
No.
So we didn't record in person. I think this is the first time you and I have been in the same room for about a month.
Yeah. So I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I'm glad to be done with it. Glad that I had all my shots and everything, which, I assume made it less worse than it otherwise would have been. But anyway, good to be back. We've got some follow-up this week.
We do.
What do we got, Joe?
George wrote in to complain about Wells Fargo from our episode 249.
Okay.
Great. I'm mixing up the numbers, Dave. Now, I don't want to go into too much detail about his complaining about the staff at Wells Fargo and the way they run things. But suffice to say, he doesn't think they're doing a good job with customer care.
Okay.
But I do want to highlight one of his claims from his email. He said, when my wife had one of her Wells Fargo accounts locked out online due to a problem with her multi-factor authentication, she went to a local Wells Fargo branch for help. The staff and manager gave her a hard time by publicly embarrassing her with statements like she was stupid. Unfortunately, I was not there or with her, or else I would have definitely intervened. But because of this...
Breaking news, Wells Fargo branch burns to the ground.
I'm sure George is not going to burn. George is not an arsonist, Dave.
No, but he will stand up for his loved ones.
But we all feel that way sometimes. We all have the inner arsonist that says, I'll burn,
That's right.
It's,
treat someone I love this way, you will pay.
it's Melvin from Office Space. I'll burn this place to the ground.
Right.
But now she refuses to use multi-factor authentication on her Wells Fargo account because of this interaction.
Right.
Which makes complete sense to me. George says he's put some other controls on there. I'm assuming that he has a really strong password for it.
Right.
Which would be good. But
Yeah.
this is I don't doubt that this happened. I don't have any other confirmation, but I would not be surprised to see this happen. It's unfortunate. I would hazard a guess to say that it's probably localized.
I hope so.
George was triggered by our story in episode 249 to say, I had a bad experience with Wells Fargo too.
Yeah.
And here it is.
Yeah.
So, it's unfortunate that this kind of thing happened.
It is. And, look, everybody has a bad day and we all have moments we wish we could take back where we weren't as kind or gracious with other people. But if you're
You work at a
there's
bank.
no excuse if you're in a customer service position to shame a customer or make them feel bad about themselves. That's just unacceptable.
Yeah, the person has come in to get their online account locked out or unlocked. You're supposed to just help them with that. Don't ridicule them for it. It's, you know what? For a lot of people, this is the first time they're doing it.
Right.
There are going to be bumps in the road.
Yeah.
Understand that.
They would no longer have my business.
Yes. Suffice it to say, that's how I would have responded too.
Yeah. All right. Well, our thanks to George for sending in that story. Let's jump into our stories here. My story comes from a listener named Keith who wrote in. This is a story from the Wall Street Journal, written by Jaewon Kang. And it's titled, Scammers Target Stores with Bomb Threats Seeking Bitcoin and Gift Cards. So evidently some of the bigger, well-known national retail chains, organizations like Kroger and Walmart and Amazon, Whole Foods, they have received bomb threats at stores. And it seems like this isn't localized to one area. It's happening across the nation. They're receiving bomb threats where the person threatening the bomb calls in and says that, for example, a pipe bomb has been placed in the store, and if you don't pay $5,000 in Bitcoin, or some of them have demanded gift cards, we're going to set off the bomb. And of course, the store has to take this seriously.
Right.
So typically we're talking about evacuating the store, calling law enforcement, bringing in a bomb squad, or at least, dogs to sweep the store, and so on and so forth. And I don't know what the income rate of a large store like this is, but I can imagine when you're talking about a Whole Foods or a Walmart, if you shut down for a couple hours, which I think something like this would shut down the store for a couple hours, you're probably going to lose more than $5,000 in revenue.
Yes.
So I wonder if this is spreading because it's working. I wonder if there are cases where the stores are doing the math and paying off the terrorists. Right,
yeah.
Because it's cheaper.
I would bet, I don't know. That would be a good question to ask. I would like to know the answer to that.
Yeah. We probably would never know. I mean, they wouldn't want to publicize it. People, here's the thing. There would certainly be coverage of the bomb threat, because I don't suppose a store could wave off a bomb threat. Because what if a bomb goes off accidentally?
Right.
Right? Now look, there's probably no bomb. Right. I mean, I think we can all agree there's probably no bomb.
If somebody calls in a bomb threat, though, and says, we're going to detonate it with, if you don't give us the $5,000.
Right.
The only response is to pull the fire alarm and evacuate the building immediately.
Yeah.
Just hang up the phone and do that. Because don't sit there and try to negotiate with them at that point in time. Just evacuate the building.
Yeah.
The question I have is, are these guys calling up to these places and saying, look, we could shut you down with a bomb threat. If you don't give us $5,000, we'll call a bomb threat in to the local police.
Right.
And then they'll come in and evacuate your store for you.
Right.
That seems to me like a more approachable way to do it. Because if somebody calls a bomb threat into my store, I'm evacuating that store and hanging up the phone and getting out myself.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
I'm hanging up the phone. They're not going to make any progress.
Yeah.
But if somebody calls me and says, hey, I'm a bad guy, and I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't have a bomb in your store, but I can call the police and tell them there's a bomb in your store.
Right.
And they'll come in and evacuate your store, and you will lose 2 hours of business while the dogs run through and search for bombs.
Yes.
That would be more persuasive, I think.
Yeah.
However, I don't think you should capitulate to that either. Because if you capitulate to that once, you're going to capitulate to that once a week, once a month at least. They're going to do that all the time because they know it works. It's going to become a cost of you doing business.
Yeah. It's an interesting sort of, I guess, is it fair to say, an escalation of the ransomware trend?
Yeah, I think it's a low effort. I don't even know if I'd call this ransomware. This is like...
I mean, you're holding the store hostage, basically.
Yeah, you're holding the store hostage, but it is a ransom, but it's not, there's no where, there's no software, there's no technical expertise in this. You're just trying to scare people.
Right, it's a threat. Mm-hmm.
Right, it's a threat. Mm-hmm. I don't...
And
so low effort.
This article doesn't point to any cases that were successful where, they don't highlight any times when the stores paid the demand. They do point out that there have been other cases of stores being threatened for other things. There was a story, they say earlier this month, some Target stores got threats because the retailer had LGBTQ merchandise in the stores.
Yes, and I think there was some talk of burning a Wells Fargo office to the ground.
Yeah, right. People were, and again, they had to take those threats seriously.
Right, absolutely they do.
Yeah, but there was no money exchanged there. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's tough on the employees, obviously, tough on the folks who want to purchase things at these stores, tough on law enforcement because they've got to go, these will have to be taken seriously. But I wonder, too, the other side of this where part of what enables this sort of thing is the degree to which we can still have anonymity when it comes to making a phone call.
Right.
And that's a problem.
It is. Well, is it? I mean, do you need anonymity when you're making a phone call? That's a good question.
Well, when you're making this kind of phone call.
Yeah, when you're making this kind of phone call, absolutely.
But, what I'm saying is you can use, voice over IP account. You can get a burner phone call. A burner phone.
Right.
You could go to Walmart, buy a burner phone, and call the Walmart.
Maybe you can look around for a payphone. When was the last time you saw a functioning payphone?
You know what? I can tell you the answer to that. I saw a functioning payphone at Disney World. Yeah. We were vacationing in Disney World in March of this year, and we were at Animal Kingdom, and there was a functioning payphone attached to the side of one of the buildings, and my two sons seriously thought it was a joke. Like they thought they picked up the handset of this payphone, and they expected that Mickey Mouse was going to talk to them.
Right.
That's what they thought. But no, it was a dial tone, and I don't even know if my younger son has ever heard a dial tone, right?
There's a great video out there of showing a bunch of kids, like 10 or 11-year-old kids, a rotary phone and saying, make a phone call on this phone.
Right,
Here's my number.
Right,
and they can't do it.
Right.
Because nobody's ever gone through the 3 minutes of instruction it takes to use a telephone.
Yeah. Yeah. No, ask a kid today why we use the phrase "hang up" when we say we're going to end a call. I'm going to hang up. Why do we use that phrase? They're not familiar with that.
Yeah,
we had you're like me. You probably at some point in your life had a phone in your kitchen.
Yep.
That was on the wall.
No, it was not on the wall. We never had a wall-mounted phone.
No,
I always wanted one, but we never had one.
Well, we had one in the kitchen with a very long cord, the handset cord, and. So when you ended the phone call, you hung up. You hung the handset on the phone that was hanging on the wall, but nobody does that anymore. Anyway,
put it in the cradle at my house.
We have digressed.
Yes, we have, as we frequently do.
Far from the story here, but anyway, look. On the one hand, I can see there are good uses for anonymity in the world, in our society, but. It enables this sort of thing. So,
yes.
You got good sides and bad. We'll have a link to this story in the show notes. I'm not sure what really can be done about this.
Not paying the ransom or the demand.
Right.
Because if you do that, all they're going to do is come back.
Yeah.
If you don't do that and you just take the hit a couple of times, that they'll eventually give up.
Right. They'll move on to something else.
Right.
If they're not getting paid.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. All right. Well, that's what I have this week. Joe, what do you got for us?
Dave, my story comes from the New York Times, and it is written by Julian Barnes and Edward Wong. The headline is, Chinese hackers targeted Commerce Secretary and other U.S. officials.
Yeah.
So apparently, Chinese hackers have gained access to the email account of Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo.
Yes.
which is impressive.
Is it?
I don't know. Actually, I have some questions I'm going to ask at the end of this. End of this, but they were also trying to get access to people in Department of State. For those outside of the U.S., and maybe not, even those not familiar with the setup of the U.S. government, in the executive branch, there are these secretaries who head up different cabinet positions. That's called a cabinet position.
Right.
And they head up these different departments. Department of Commerce is one department. Department of State is another department.
Yeah.
Department of Commerce deals with, as you'd expect, commerce and international trade and things. And Department of State deals with matters of diplomacy.
Yeah.
It's really what they are intended to do. So it makes sense to me that a foreign national would be who works a foreign state would be very interested in gaining access to the email accounts of the secretaries of these departments.
Right. That would be it's a sensible espionage target.
I would agree. Yes. And particularly Ms. Raimondo, who has been, as the article points out, one of the most outspoken critics of Beijing, and has said things like, we're going to stop exporting our semiconductor technology if China supplies the chips to Russia. And we're also going to put tighter export controls on them.
Yeah.
So China doesn't want that to happen. So it makes sense that this would be a good target. Now, it's important to note that nobody in the government is saying that China is attributing this to China. One of the big problems in all this, and Robert Lee talks about this all the time, his big thing is attribution is remarkably difficult.
Yeah.
But they have a number of people who are not named in this article who are pretty sure it's China. And I think Microsoft has even gone so far as to say, yeah, this is probably China.
Yeah.
Microsoft disclosed the hack on Tuesday, and the State Department said that they had discovered an intrusion back in May. Or they discovered an intrusion in June that had started in May.
Right.
And these are with Microsoft Cloud accounts, Microsoft 365 email accounts.
Yeah, and my understanding is that it was the government that detected the intrusion and tipped off Microsoft.
Right.
And Microsoft, because it was a government agency that was breached, they were obligated to do the disclosure.
Correct.
Yeah.
And when the State Department said, hey, we've got some things going on here that are kind of hinky, that's when Microsoft did their internal investigation and found out, oh, yeah, somebody is inside the Secretary of Commerce's email.
Oops.
Right. So they found that pretty quickly after Department of State let them know.
Right.
So U.S. officials are saying that they're only targeting a few accounts across 25 different organizations, and they've only made it into a single-digit number of accounts. So it's not been a broad attack. And the article says that the U.S. government currently says that no classified information was lost. It also says from other sources that it's pretty early in the investigation to determine that.
Right.
So they give it and they take it away.
Well, there's some high-level targeting, too.
It is some high-level targeting.
If they indeed got into a cabinet-level email account, that's a serious breach.
Yeah. Yeah. I would hope that they are practicing their proper protection of classified information to make sure that there is no classified information in this account, which there's probably not supposed to be.
Right.
American officials have said Microsoft charges organizations extra for regular access to the logs that would let them discover this.
Yes.
So I don't know. How do you feel about that, Dave?
Well, my understanding is that this was a point of contention between Microsoft and the federal government with some of the contracting for these cloud services. Right. Where the feds were saying, we want to contract with Microsoft for cloud services. And, the government contracts, it's probably safe to say they contract with just about everybody for the big cloud providers.
I would say that's true.
Yeah. So in their negotiations with Microsoft, it was a point of contention where the government was saying, look, we don't want to have to pay for this premium tier of cloud services to get something as fundamental as logging.
Right.
And that's what is at issue here.
Oh, and this is what has happened, is because they didn't pay for that service and they didn't get it.
Right.
they're now hung out to dry here.
Are
Well,
they?
not
I'm
really
not
hung
sure.
out to dry, but they're
I'm not sure because it was the government that discovered this. So
Right.
somebody, it could have been. I don't look. I'm guessing here, but it could have been that some of the organizations had access to the logs and some didn't. Some felt it was worth it to pay for it. Some didn't. I don't know. I'm totally speculating here.
Right.
But,
I have a couple of more fundamental questions.
okay.
Why are large government organizations like Department of State and Department of Commerce even using Microsoft Cloud services to host their email?
These probably cheaper.
Okay, it's cheaper, but I don't know. Is it cheaper? It would be a good question to ask, because especially if you're having to pay for log files or log service. Let's just say it's a service.
Yeah.
I've spoken to people who work in security in the government.
Right.
And one of their big concerns, one of the things that I've spoken to a person
Yeah.
who works.
Okay.
Let me say it that way. And he and I were talking, and he was like, we're not going to the cloud with our email services because, first off, we need to be able to monitor that very closely.
Yeah.
And this is one of those examples where it's pretty easy to predict what's going to go wrong here. And you're not going to have any insight into the system.
Yeah.
And you're going to be relying on the cloud vendor to provide it. If they miss it, then, I have a lot of questions here, Dave.
Yeah. Yeah. Look,
like to
I
know
think
more
it's ultimately a risk assessment.
Yeah.
Right. And so far we're talking about non-classified email accounts.
Right.
So you put that reality into your risk assessment and you weigh that against the costs and you say, what would happen if this account got breached, and what level of security is Microsoft promising us for the price we're going to pay? And somewhere along the line, somebody made the assessment, or Microsoft won the contract.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Right. My other question, and this is a big question, is why are government organizations not using some kind of physical security device like the CAC, the Common Access Card, that would authenticate them much like a YubiKey does? I don't know if it's the same. I don't think it's the same protocol, but it's a fairly available protocol. Or if Microsoft can't do CACs, why not just use YubiKeys?
Yeah,
or
I don't know.
Titans?
They may be. My understanding is that this hack had something to do with the threat actors being able to generate secure keys in a way that Microsoft had not anticipated.
I see.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So
So they've defeated some security feature.
that's my understanding.
So this is an
Again,
advanced nation-state actor.
Yeah, well, I think it's a combination of an advanced nation-state actor and a bug/vulnerability that people were unaware of.
Right.
And, 0 day, basically. And so you get those two things together, and this is the kind of thing you can end up with.
absolutely.
This is a classic supply chain
All right.
issue.
Well, then
So-
my questions are answered then, Dave. Thanks.
You want to choose a different story this week, Joe?
No. I'm sticking with this one.
Okay, very good, very good. But you know what? I think your questions are good, and it does highlight the complexity of all of this.
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
Look, security's hard,
It is.
right? And software is complex, and so you don't. There's no way to know what's lurking under the hood here. At some point, you got to trust people, and I can't blame people for trusting the big providers. But this goes to show you that even the big providers have vulnerabilities, and it's a risk assessment.
Yeah, it always is.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are our stories for this week. We will have links to those in the show notes. We would love to hear from you. If there's something you'd like us to discuss here on the show, you can email us. It's hackinghumans@n2k.com. Joe, it's time to move on to our catch of the day.
Dave, our catch of the day comes from Steve. It is it's just an advanced fee scam or something of that nature, but it's pretty good.
Okay.
So
It says, Dear Sir, I am Barrister Andre Dinish, the lawyer to Miss Hannity Kearns, late. My client, Hannity Kearns, was born on the 27th of June, 1955,
in 1959, in the Ukrainian SSR, Soviet Union, now Ukraine. Unfortunately, he died of COVID on the 17th December 2020 in Berlin, Germany at the age of 61. I bring you a proposal that will change our lives forever. Mr. Henley Kearns was a top politician in Ukraine, known for his political stride. While he was alive, he was a member of a political party known as Kearns Bloc and was a mayor of Kharkov from 24th November 2010 till death. Kearns' wife and her 2 kids were killed by the Russian military on 8th of April 2022 during the Russian invasion of Ukraine. My client, Mr. Henry Kearns, was one of the corrupt politicians in the history of Kharkov. However, Kearns' 10-year reign in Kharkov was marked by scandals and controversy. Hence, in 2014, an attempt was made on his life. I was his close ally. My client made a fixed deposit of $39,800,000 using a company which never existed. I was the person that handled most documentation of his shady deals while he was still mayor of Kharkov. This is a lifetime opportunity that will change our lives forever. I'm going to recommend you as the beneficiary of $39,800,000 so that the funds will be released directly to your bank. All I require from you is honesty and cooperation to enable us to see this transaction through. We're going to share the funds in 2 equal parts, 50% for each. The transaction will be executed under a legitimate arrangement that will protect us from any breach of law. I advise you to keep this matter confidential. Get back to me, whatever your decision, as I wait for your prompt response. Yours in service, Barrister Andrei Denis.
So, it's pretty awesome. It's the Kearns was the mayor of Kharkov and did die of COVID in December of 2022. So I did a cursory amount of research. I don't know if his wife and children were killed. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah.
But Steve notes, I love the mashup of current events in the Ukrainian war with needing an honest money laundering mule.
Right.
So
right.
I thought this was just fantastic.
Yeah.
It's obviously fake. You're going to get scammed if you start responding to this. You're going to have probably an advanced fee scam.
Yeah.
To release the money.
Yeah, probably.
And as always, they will keep hitting you up for money until you either run out of money or realize it's a scam and stop paying them.
Right. All right. Well, our thanks to Steve for sending that in. And again, we would love to hear from you. If there's something you'd like us to consider for our catch of the day, you can email us at hackinghumans@n2k.com. We were talking about making users into an asset for security professionals. Simply put, users want to do the right thing. They're often just lacking the knowledge to do so. That's one of the reasons KnowBe4 has released Security Coach, a real-time security coaching tool that takes alerts from your existing security stack and sends immediate coaching to users who've taken risky actions. For example, imagine a user has visited a high-risk website or tried to open a document containing malware. Existing security tools will likely block that action, but the user might not understand why. Security Coach analyzes these alerts and provides users with relevant security tips via email or Slack, coaching them on why the action they just took was risky. Help users learn from their mistakes and strengthen your organization's security culture with Security Coach. Learn more about Security Coach at knowbe4.com/securitycoach. That's knowbe4.com/securitycoach. Joe, I recently had the pleasure of speaking with Mallory Sofastaii. She is the consumer investigator and anchor at WMAR, which is one of our local broadcast affiliates here in Baltimore. And our conversation centers on how some scammers are going after animal adoption organizations. Here's my conversation with Mallory Sofastaii.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, for having me. It's really awful what we've been seeing. I was contacted by the owner of a local rescue group, Bring 'em Home Animal Rescue and Trapping. She was extremely frustrated because on May 17th, she discovered that she lost access to her Facebook page, and she needs that page to post about animals that are up for adoption, to be a resource if someone needs to rehome their animal if they're in a bad situation, and also to fundraise because she relies on these funds to care for these animals. A lot of them need medical attention. And this was kind of her tool and her platform to do all of that. And then all of a sudden she lost access. So she immediately tries to contact Facebook and she gets no response. So she has been trying for months to get a hold of them, to take back control of her page. She sees that, she's been locked out, the password's been changed, and she can't get in. And in the interim, someone is now using her page and, her following to post about fake puppies that are for sale. So this goes completely against the core of her purpose, but also we know that these puppies aren't real. If you want to, say, buy one, you click through the link, you have to fill out this form, and then they ask for a deposit right away for $300 via Venmo or Zelle. And that's just not how that works. Even if you were interested in buying a dog online, you have to see the dog, you have to interact with the breeder. You're not just going to send someone money out of the blue.
Right. So not only taking over the account, but using the goodwill that these rescue organizations have built up as part of the scam.
Right. And in the course of speaking with Leah, who runs this rescue, she let us know that it's not just happening to her, that it's happening to other people. She's also an admin on a page called Lost and Found Pets of Baltimore City and Baltimore County. And they use the page to post about animals that were found on the streets, animals that were taken to the shelter. And then owners can go there and look through the photos and try to find their missing pet. Well, that page was also taken over by hackers. It could potentially be the same people because they shared Leah's fake puppy post that was on her original Facebook. And then they changed their name of the page from the Lost and Found Pets of Baltimore County and City to Barks, which is our local animal shelter in Baltimore City, the Baltimore Animal Rescue and Care Shelter, trying to mimic them to then solicit contributions to that page, which is extremely problematic because Barks cares for around 10,000 animals a year, and they really rely on any kind of donation that they receive and also their good name. So if people suddenly get scammed, they may not realize that it's not actually Barks.
And Facebook has been unresponsive?
So Leah finally got her page back, I want to say within the last week, but it probably took around 2 months. And she only got it back because she started going through LinkedIn, scouring the internet. She found the phone number of someone who supposedly works on Facebook's security team. It was actually the phone number for this person's ex-husband, who then connected her with this woman. So she had to go through great lengths to get her name in front of someone. Yes. And then within a few days of doing that, her page had been restored. But leading up to that, she had received no response from Facebook. And Dave, I have to say, I've contacted Facebook as well. And typically when I reach out to a company, I'm connected with a public relations coordinator. They'll send me a response. They'll at least acknowledge that they're looking into this. I received no response at all from Facebook. I sent follow-up emails, nothing.
Yeah, that really strikes me because I think, I go so far as to say it's a public service that you and, folks at the local affiliate level are able to do for your viewers, for your listeners, to be able to take on some of these cases where people aren't getting responsiveness because of the public platform that you have. It's kind of a superpower that you and your colleagues have to make these companies pay attention. But really frustrating that Facebook has been unresponsive to that.
Extremely frustrating. And also, I love animals. I have rescue pets myself. And so I feel like time is of the essence here. These local nonprofits, the shelters are filled to the brim right now. Like they need so much help to rehome these animals, and they need that money to care for these animals. So the fact that someone is now taking away their ability to do that, I feel like there's urgency to this. And if you were to ask them, they say, yes, animals' lives are at stake by no longer having access to their platforms. And so, that's why they come to me. And that's why I try to escalate this issue or get it in front of the right people. And the fact that I wasn't able to do that was really frustrating. And I have to say that with some of these social media platforms, it's almost becoming the norm. We had an issue with Twitter a few weeks ago where an individual was scammed. We tried to reach out to Twitter through their press email, and their automatic response now is a poop emoji.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's hard to, I mean, not a serious company when that's the response you get from their PR. So, what are your recommendations here for organizations? Lots of companies are doing business on Facebook, both for profit but nonprofits as well. In retrospect, are there any steps that they could have taken to better protect their pages?
Yeah, so I mean, it almost feels like rolling the dice now that the company may not be responsive if this were to happen to you. And Barks has said that, they are taking every precaution they can to avoid this because they see that rescue groups, organizations dealing with animals are targets now. So they've limited the number of admins that they have to, just try to avoid any potential phishing scams. There's less people that they could target. Facebook also has a link on their website about how to better keep your account secure, and that includes login alerts and two-factor authentication. I have to say, though, there was a third rescue that we spoke with, RescueWell. They lost access to their page in the beginning of January. Now, the hackers haven't been utilizing the page. She feels like they've kind of been sitting on it, but she says that she received no phishing email, no notices. She has two-factor authentication. She's actually in the tech space, so she was really surprised to see that someone had taken over her account, and she had no knowledge of it until she tried to log in. And to this day, she still hasn't regained access to that account. So,
Wow.
You want to be as careful as you can. And I know when I log in on Facebook from a different device, it asks me to, approve a code sent to a familiar device. So you just want to make sure you have those two-factor authentication set up, but you just have to be very careful about the links you're clicking on. With Leah and her rescue, she suspects that she was hacked after receiving an email from Pet Finder, although it wasn't really Pet Finder, and it was asking for her to confirm her nonprofit's details and clicking on that link. And so she thinks that might have been how her account was compromised. But again, that wasn't the case for several others.
It strikes me the social engineering aspect of this. You mentioned that we love these animals, and so I think that puts our guard down when we see an animal that's in need, or we're looking for an animal we want to bring into our home. We want to make that animal is like a family member, and so it's easy to get caught up in that and perhaps not be as careful as we otherwise would be. But I guess this is a lesson here that you really need to be vigilant.
Absolutely. And also it's a lesson to, we always say adopt, don't shop. But I have to say, I see so many fake puppy scams on the internet. And the photo that these hackers were using was on 8 different websites, 4 different Facebook pages. So that they're just repurposing this photo, or other people are, to try to take advantage and play on people's emotions. They see that cute puppy. They're maybe feeling lonely or vulnerable, or, they want to contribute to this rescue group in need. But you have to do your due diligence, because sadly, the real organizations, the real people that rely on these fundraising and donations, are being targeted and exploited.
So in addition to reaching out to Facebook, you reached out to some of these payment platforms as well. What did you find from them?
Yeah, so how they were operating this kind of scheme is, you would send a deposit via Zelle for this puppy, and there was this person's name. Well, if you didn't have Zelle, then you could message them, and they give you your Venmo ID. So me, along with several of the people affiliated with the nonprofit, wanted to see what user IDs were being used so that we could make Zelle and Venmo aware of that. And between Zelle and Venmo, there were probably 6 different accounts we had identified. And the strange thing with this, they were people's names. They were set to private, so you couldn't see how many people had actually paid the deposit for the puppies, or what other transactions they had. But I alerted Zelle and Venmo. Zelle was very guarded. They basically said they can't discuss any individual accounts, but that fraud isn't tolerated and they'll begin investigating right away. They didn't say whether or not, anyone had sent money via Zelle or if they were able to return that. Venmo, however, I worked with their public relations person. I sent 4 different Venmo IDs. We were made aware that at least 2 people had sent deposits. PayPal is the parent company of Venmo. They confirmed to me that they were able to return the funds for at least one of the victims and that they were able to investigate and freeze some of the other accounts. My question for them, though, was, are these new accounts that were created by these people, or were these accounts that had been taken over and now used in this scheme? Because you do have to verify your account through Venmo in order to set one up.
Yeah.
So that's kind of another layer, of how, scammers are using peer-to-peer payment transfer apps, because it is harder to return the money. It is harder to trace. And, like we saw, they used 4 or 5 different names, and we don't know if those were actually real people, if they were involved, or, if they were just using someone else's account.
All right. Well, Mallory, thank you for helping spread the word about this and all the work that you do there at WMAR2 in Baltimore. And thank you for taking the time for us today.
Thank you, Dave. So nice being with you.
Joe, what do you think?
More screaming into the void of big tech, Dave.
Yes.
This infuriates me. Listening to this story is just more frustrating. I was on LinkedIn the other day, and one of my connections was talking about one of his connections that had his account suspended because they thought he was a bot because of the frequency with which he was posting.
Huh.
And he was asking people if they knew anybody at LinkedIn, and he was tagging people at LinkedIn, or respondents rather, were tagging people at LinkedIn, and people who still worked at LinkedIn would not respond. They weren't responding to it.
Yeah.
And people who didn't work at LinkedIn said, well, maybe you should talk to this person. Because the person, I checked on this, the person who did respond no longer worked at LinkedIn, but did work at LinkedIn and said, well, try this person. But that person never responded.
Yeah.
It's not their problem, Dave.
I know.
But it makes sense to me that someone would want to take over an adoption page for animals so that they can scam people with fake puppies. That seems like a real opportunity for a scammer.
Right.
Even if you were faking adoption of animals, not just the sale of puppies, you could still make money by scamming people with adoption fees. We need a deposit of an adoption fee.
Right.
And some of the adoption fees at some of these agencies around here are steep.
Yeah, it's true.
I have also adopted 2 dogs out of a, I don't want to call it a shelter. It's an organization out of West Virginia.
Okay.
And we've gone up there because we have connections up there and because the fees are a lot less.
Huh.
Right. And now we've built a relationship with the folks. So, we know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And our next dog will probably come from there. Hopefully that won't be for a very long time.
Right.
Because right now I have 2 dogs, and in my opinion, that's 1 dog too many.
Okay.
But I love both my dogs, and I couldn't ever do anything. I couldn't ever change the situation that I have 2 dogs.
Sure.
So no angry email, please.
Sure.
Interesting that they're asking you to fill out a form. That is probably another way to capture information they're going to use to either sell or I doubt these guys are actually going to go ahead and do some identity theft. They're probably just aggregating information so they can sell it.
Right.
That's another branch of their business model. And they're taking over, it was interesting when Mallory talks about the guys that took over one page and then set it up to impersonate Barks, which is the animal rescue for Baltimore City.
Yeah.
The animal control for Baltimore City.
Right.
So, I mean, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Because now you're directing traffic away from Barks, right? The actual legitimate service, and you're impersonating them.
Right. It's kind of a double whammy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're taking this Baltimore County organization. For those who are outside of the Maryland area, didn't grow up in the greatest state in the union, Dave.
You tell no lies, Joe.
My son-in-law, who's from Pennsylvania, says that Maryland has the highest ratio of pride to land mass.
Okay. All right. right. That's funny.
in the union.
I don't know. Has he been to Rhode Island? But
Not a lot of landmass there. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question.
no, but yeah, I again, no lies told.
Right.
Yes, West Marylanders are fiercely proud of our little home state.
But anyway, Baltimore City and Baltimore County are two different jurisdictions.
Yeah.
The county is all around the city, but the city is not part of the county.
Right.
It's not beholden to anything. So the fact that they're going after a Baltimore County organization and impersonating a Baltimore City organization, I think that's interesting. But I don't think it really matters for what they're doing. They're just harming two groups of people at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. And for that, I hope they're caught, although I doubt anything will ever happen to these guys.
Right.
The length that Leah had to go to get her page back, that Leah's the person that Mallory interviewed, that is unacceptable. That she had to go on LinkedIn, find people who worked at Facebook, call that person up, say, oh, that's actually my ex-spouse. Let me put you in touch with them.
Yeah.
First off, that's a huge amount of dedication on the part of Leah.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to Leah. But you shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's no response from Facebook, one of the things I just got through talking to a group of people earlier this week about this. Remember, with these social media platforms, you are not the customer, you are the product.
Right.
They sell you like a grocery store sells groceries. And if a grocery store drops a bottle of ketchup on the floor, they don't turn to the bottle of ketchup and go, how can I help? They just clean up aisle 6.
Right.
Right. Except with Facebook, it's just bottles of broken ketchup all over the store. Right. They don't care.
Right.
You're not impacting their business model at all.
Yeah.
Why would they take the time out of their busy day to do this? I mean,
You are a rounding error.
yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's totally up to you to secure your account. And even if you do everything right, there was another story that Mallory was talking about. This woman who worked in the tech field and had multi-factor authentication on her account.
Yeah.
Somehow her group got taken over too.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's a number of ways that can happen. All you need to do is put the wrong person in an admin position in one of the groups. And you can even know the person that you're doing it to, but if they don't have multi-factor authentication on their account and their account gets hacked, that new owner of the person's account can kick you out of the group, assign themselves as administrator, and Bob's your uncle, they're done.
Right.
They've got it.
Right.
There's also a possibility if you're the only administrator that they might have somebody on the inside. I don't know. I need to know more information about that.
Yeah.
I think that's less likely though.
Yeah, probably.
I
wish that there was some sort of obligation for these companies.
Dave, come now.
I know. It's adorable for me to say these things, but I wish there was some sort of obligation for these companies to operate at a human scale when it comes to customer service and responsiveness. In other words, if you're going to run as a business, then you have to be reachable in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
And that's not the case right now.
No.
There's not going to be the case anytime soon. And I think it's bad for us that we've allowed this to happen.
Dave, that would severely impact their profits.
Exactly. Exactly.
On the discussion on the peer-to-peer money apps is interesting as well. I think these apps are very difficult to monitor. I don't know what's the word. I don't like them.
Yeah.
I don't use them. I have used them in the past. I don't like using them.
Huh.
But my biggest concern with this is when you send money over these accounts, over these peer-to-peer things, it's pretty much gone.
Right.
Although Venmo in the discussion did a really good job of getting somebody their money back.
Yeah.
If I was going to speculate on how they're doing it, I would say that they're taking over accounts. They're taking over verified accounts.
Yeah.
To get access to them, and then they're probably sending the money via whatever the Cash App or Venmo or Zelle or whatever around to other accounts. They may have a whole network of these things where they move the money through.
Yeah. Convert them to crypto and off they
convert
go.
it to crypto.
Yeah.
And once they convert it to crypto, it's nobody's going to do blockchain analysis for a $3,000 fraud case.
Right. Well, I want to thank Mallory Sofastae for joining us again. She's been on our show a number of times.
She has.
And
I've interviewed her once.
yeah, I always appreciate her taking the time for us. As I mentioned in my conversation with her, I think, the work that they're able to do there as broadcast affiliates to shine a light on these things and, use the attention that they can bring to these things to try to get things taken care of.
Right.
That's a real service to their community. And so I'm glad that she's in a position to do that and that's still happening, because the broadcast affiliates don't have the power or influence that they once had.
Right.
So the fact that they still find value in doing this for their community, I think that's a good thing.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Although I will point out that she got no feedback, nothing back from Facebook, and a poop emoji back from Twitter.
Yeah.
So it seems to me like these big tech companies have just written off local media, and I think maybe this needs to be handled by a large, one of the larger news networks.
Yeah.
Somebody just hammers on these guys day and night.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes that's how it happens.
Right.
A local affiliate gets hold of a story, and then the network that they're affiliated with runs with it, and off you go. So
yeah.
We'll see.
I was a member of a Facebook group that got taken over, and one of the members was able to post a link to a new group. They just started a new group, is what they did. And everybody, it was a small group. It was only like 600 people.
Okay.
But we all went to the new group. And I don't like Facebook. I hate it. It's the only social media platform I'm on regularly. And
yeah.
It's not on my phone. It's the only thing I have on my phone is the Messenger.
Right.
And that's what draws me into the web interface is the Messenger. I go, let me check and see who's sending me this message. And
yeah. Yeah. Look, there's no doubt it has utility and people find value in it. I'm not on Facebook, but my wife is. And
did you start a Threads account?
No.
No?
No. No.
I'm not doing that either.
No, I transitioned from Twitter. I locked down my Twitter account and I went over to Mastodon, and I'm very happy over on Mastodon. It's not algorithmically driven. There's no ads, and it's the way the internet used to be, Joe.
Oh, maybe I'll reactivate my Mastodon account or start a new one.
Yeah. It's so I'm content there for the moment. I don't feel the pull from any of these other young whippersnapper startup social media companies. So
it's not a whipper. That's Mark Zuckerberg. He's not a whippersnapper.
Well, no, but he's younger than me. So
yeah, he's younger than both of us.
There you go. All right. Well, again, our thanks to Mallory Sofastae for joining us. Again, she's the consumer investigator and anchor at WMAR TV in Baltimore, and we do appreciate her taking the time. We want to thank all of you for listening, and of course, we want to thank our sponsors at KnowBe4. They are experts in helping users do the right thing through new school security awareness training. That is our show. We want to thank all of you for listening. Our thanks to the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute for their participation. You can learn more at isi.jhu.edu. N2K Strategic Workforce Intelligence optimizes the value of your biggest investment, your people. We make you smarter about your team while making your team smarter. Learn more at n2k.com. Our senior producer is Jennifer Iben. Our executive editor is Peter Kilpie. I'm Dave Bittner.
And I'm Joe Kerrigan.
Thanks for listening.